Welcome back to the Doormat Mom No More podcast. I'm Doormat Mom, where we talk all about estrangement, family estrangement, parent-child estrangement, and we try to figure out what to do to reunify families, bring them back together, and create a much more cohesive relationship between everyone involved. And today I have a very special guest. First off, she got me up really early because she's on the other side of the world. And she's one of the few people I'd actually get up this early. I didn't even take my shower yet. But I think she's just such a wealth of knowledge. I would be surprised if you guys don't know her. All right. She is she's on like a multi-country tour right now. But two, she's come into our lives in a way that has rocked the world. And I really think that, I'm going to press her a little bit on some questions from this angle that I want her opinion on. She and I did just talk about it, and she's very excited to give her opinion. So I'm not going to tell you who it is. I'm going to let you watch her video, and then obviously it'll become very apparent to you, and then I'll bring her on. So here we go. Let me enter the stage. Bring those up. I'm going to go over here. Here we go.
Best friends that a child can have are their parents. Children don't need other children. And if there are other children around, nice. But if they're around, it should be for short times and you should be there. Because you can have a naughty child that can undo your training in an afternoon. So it's very important to protect your children against the influence of other children. What children need most is to work. What children need to do is learn service. They need to become self-reliant, self-sufficient, and obedient. Other friends, it's not that important. And what happens in school today, 5-year-olds talk to 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds talk to 10-year-olds. But in the homeschool where I homeschool my children, people used to say to me, your children talk to me. Because my children learnt to interact with 2-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 80-year-olds. That's the best social. You keep them with you.
Keep them with you. I agree with that. You know what? That's the first time I've actually heard someone say that children don't need other children. And when I listened to that video for the first time, I started thinking about how delayed maturity is happening in our society, not just in the US, but, in other countries as well. And we're seeing a lot of the estrangement that's happening between parents and children centered around that delayed maturity. And so I thought to myself, wow, now I'm hearing this from the angle of estrangement and saying, well, these kids that are actually, adults, so we're going to call them adult kids, may fall into that where they're really coming together with other adult children and pushing this. I know people hate me saying this from the estranged adult child perspective, but pushing this trend. And they're using technology to do it. So I wanted to bring Barbara O'Neill on the show to talk about this and to really, talk about certain aspects of this that might be able to help us in dialing this back and reunifying families. So let me bring her on. Hello. Right in the middle of your whirlwind tour, which you're doing right now. You just came back from Abu Dhabi. You're heading to Georgia at some point this month. I'm going to send my parents over to you. Barbara, that was a really compelling video, and it jumped out at me. So talk a little bit about that perspective, because it goes against everything that's being told to parents today, that you need to socialize your kids, socializing them at earliest ages, isolating them from other children will damage them. Tell me where that perspective is arriving from.
Well, I can tell you where I first came into contact with it. I'm one of 5 children. I grew up in a little town on the edge of city. I went to school with, hundreds and hundreds of other children. I was a very shy child. When I was about 18, I did psych nursing. And I was really, because I was quiet and shy, I used to observe, I used to watch, interactions. And when I was 20, I think I was 23 when I had my first child, and I was up in a country town, so I'd read and read and read. And I read a book about 2 nurses who probably in the 1930s went way out west in Australia, and they stayed at one home the night, and there was a little boy there who was 12 years age, and his closest friend was 500 kilometres away. And this little boy, he mixed with the men, he listened to the men, he talked with the man, he worked with the man, and he was such an engaging young chap. And yet he didn't have any contact with any other children.
Right.
He was still a child, he was, but he just so much enjoyed being with the man and working with the man. And I thought, interesting. And then they travelled another several hundred kilometres and stayed with another family that had twin boys. And they never saw these twin boys. Every time they'd look up around the corner, the little boys were poking around, looking at them and jumping away. So very shy, they didn't see many other people. Do you know those twin boys? One grew up to be a psychologist, the other grew up to be a lawyer, highly successful young men.
Right.
And I thought, isn't this interesting? This is against everything we've ever taught. Now let's fast forward. Probably about 16 years later, and I'm up in the rainforest, got 6 children. And people used to say to me, your children are going to be socially deprived because they don't see other children. Well, we go to homeschool camps once or twice a year, and the kids had other friends there that were also homeschooled and brought up like they were. And I didn't see any problems. My children seemed to interact immediately. And one day, some friends visited. Well, they weren't my friends, they was my sister's friends. They were from the city. She said, go and visit my sister. She's in the rainforest. She's got 6 children. They don't have electricity. So I guess we're almost a novelty. So my kids were so excited. Some kids are visiting. And they were probably youngest, maybe 3, up to about, 13, something like that. Anyway, these people arrived, and of course, we ran out to meet them, and my kids are there, all excited. And they got out of the car, and the kids got out of the car, and my kids went straight up to them and said, want to come and see the chooks? They're chickens. Want to come and look at our swing in the rainforest? Chat, chat, chat. And the kids sort of shied away from my kids.
Oh.
So my kids backed off, and they came to me and said, Mum, what's the matter with them? And I said, city kids. Give them a bit of time. City kids. Give them a bit of time. City kids that grow up in the city. My kids patiently waited. And then after the meal, finally the kids seemed to soften a bit and gingerly went out. They seemed to be scared to leave the veranda. They seemed to be scared to go out in the bush. My kids would look at me again. I said, have pity on them. They're city kids. Go party with them. They'll get used to it. And I came to the conclusion it wasn't these kids grown up way out in the bush that had problems socially.
Right.
It seemed to be these city kids. And then once a year, maybe twice, I put my 2 eldest kids, what were they? They would have been 14 and 12, on the bus, way out to Armidale, 3-hour trip, and they'd stay with another family that had a couple of kids their age. Right. When they came back, my daughter would tell me the life story of the lady she sat next to on the bus on the way there, and the life story of the lady she sat next to on the bus on the way back. And I thought, I can imagine my daughter sitting there, hello, hi Mama, I'm going out here, and I thought, I don't see any social problems with my kids, but I certainly saw them with the kids grown up in most schools. It's as if in school 14-year-olds talk to 14-year-olds, but then again, only if they've got the like is sort of in every third word. When my kids see talking like this, they go, what's the matter with them, Mum? And I say, just city kids.
Incredible. So I see that happening today, and it's expanding through the use of technology and social media, where they are like they're literally clumping into big groups of varying ages, and now we have this estrangement phenomenon. It's become an epidemic, not only in the U.S. but in Europe. I'm hearing from I'm doing interviews all the way across of Europe. I'm doing, Australia has an issue as well. There's so many places that are having issues. What do you think is happening with these
I
youth?
think what is happening is there's only one way to bind children to your heart, and that's time. And that's to do things with them. And that's not going to Disney World with them. That's actually cooking with them. It's actually gardening with them. It's actually spending time with them. I just had my two little grandchildren with me. They were 10 and 7. Well, I taught them to knit. Oh, they were so excited that they could knit. Now, there's a few holes there, but that's all right. We're getting there. And I brought them into the kitchen with me. Do you know, this is how you bind them to your hearts, and they want to go back home.
Right.
Of course they want to go back home because they love home. But I realise it's just doing things with them. So that's why I say to parents, take time. Take time to go on bushwalks with them.
Right.
And I went on a big bushwalk with my little 4-year-old grandson because, we're busy waiting for the people with all their picnics. And I said to him, let's just walk.
Right.
It was a longer walk than I thought. And I just kept saying to him, you show me where to go. Whatever you do, I will do. And if you jump up on this rock, he'd look back to make sure I jumped up on that rock. And, it's just that. It's just that.
It's just the time.
It's just walking with them. It's just doing things with them. It's just, and showing them how they can do it. Teaching them to tie their shoelaces. It takes time.
Well, let me ask you a question. For the families that have taken, obviously parents are trying to financially support their kids. They have these school realities. And so they can't stay home and just take the child into homeschooling or whatnot. And so they let them loose in the world, younger and younger ages. And there's studies out there that are, they're conflicted because there are studies out there that say the child that's actually been put in daycare and preschool, that's a better child than, to deal with as an advanced teacher than a child that has not. Now, there are studies out there that are saying that, because they're more socially, adapted. And then there's, the question of, parents who are home or staying on there. There's a lot of misperceptions, but there are realities to life. And the realities are, right now, people are just barely surviving in many ways. So what do they do? How do they, because once those kids go into the school, especially as we're seeing advanced ages like that, 13, 14, 15, they're disconnecting. Their number one influence now is the peer and the environment. And that family that ends right now. Studies are saying that, and the influence of the family and the parents specifically, truly, the majority of that influence ends by 7. And then it just completely, it's like declines to the point where now you've got their phones raising them, you've got teachers raising them, while parents are trying to financially support the family to give them everything they think they're supposed to give them in order to stay up with it. What do you do with that?
I totally get that. And those two children that were with me, they go to school. Their parents live in a town, and I certainly get that. But I believe that you're far better to go to not so many of what you think children need. Nothing takes the place of time. And one of the best things you can do is just choose a day where you go bush. And I remember taking a couple of my grandkids bush who live in the city, who was a few years ago. And do you know, at first, they almost didn't know what to do. So you know what I did? I jumped in the creek. I started having fun. And little by little, they started to warm up and join me. And that's why I say to parents, keep yourself fit so that you can do these things with the kids. But you know what also I'd like to add? Grandparents, aunts and uncles, step in.
Right.
Step in and start doing these things with the kids. You know, that's really how you bind them to your art. And you know what cheered my heart? I was home for 3 weeks last July. It was the only time in the year I was home, right in the middle of the year.
Wow.
I had 4 different grandchildren come and stay with me from Brisbane, or 7 hours away. One was 14, one was 15, one was 16, one was 17. None of them were siblings. And
Right.
I just thought, what do they want to come and stay with me for? I'm the grandmother. And then I realised, it's because you do things with him.
Right.
You take time with them. And I remember we made a video of the the 14-year-old plaiting the 15-year-old's hair. He was doing a hopeless job, but he was confident he could plait. Oh, I'll tell you what, did we laugh? Did we laugh? And that little video clip's gone through the whole family, and everyone ends up in tears laughing. And just a silly little thing like that,
Right.
plaiting the hair. He kept
Yeah.
saying, I'm totally confident I can do this. We all knew it was totally hopeless. Fun. And you know what else? Play games with them.
Right.
Monopoly. Play. There's one word that we played. In fact, I said to my grandchildren, we can do 15 minutes every hour because they love playing spoons. I don't know
Right.
if you've heard of spoons,
I haven't
Every,
played
if
spoons.
everyone
No.
gets 3 cards the same, they grab a spoon. And if there are 4 people are playing, you only put 3 spoons there. So one person misses out on a spoon and everyone's grabbing the spoons. Fun. You got to have fun with them. You got to laugh with them.
I agree, and I think that leads into first off, I think the grandparent influence is incredibly helpful to the development of the grandchildren. But then now you have families that are actually using these grandchildren as pawns. If you don't do this, mom and dad,
Yeah.
you can't see your grandchildren. So
I'm
how do
so
you,
I'm
what do
so
you
sorry.
do with that?
I'm so sorry to hear that. And it happened to a very close friend of mine. It broke her heart. Do you know, she was just patient and she kept sending postcards to the kids and, you know, little presents to their
Right.
mum. And I tell you, eventually it took a few years, but they came back.
Yeah.
You always return with kindness, always kindness.
Yeah.
And I believe that will always come back. That mends so many things. What a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. You know, being sweet and being kind and repaying evil with good. That.
I yeah. I see the value of that. I really do. I agree with you. I definitely agree with you with regards to that. Although it's not going to work with everybody because there's a tremendous amount of division in so many ways culturally. Our cultures are sort of shifting where, you
But
know,
it's true, but it does take two to fight.
yes,
And so
true.
and sometimes it's very hard, especially when you're hurt.
Right. Right.
Especially when you're hurt. But what you got to remember is it's not over yet. It's not over yet. And you don't know where sometimes those people are coming from.
Right. Yes, I agree. And that's why I would say to parents who are following me, I would never give up hope. I mean, I would never
No,
give up hope. As a Christian, I pray to God and I pray for, my own situation. I pray for other situation. Where do you think, let me just say, do you think the absence of God in our society is part of this issue? Do you think that,
I absolutely do think it is because it gives a stability to the life. And God is a solution God. And this friend who didn't have much contact with her grandkids for a couple of years, she just thanked God every day for how he had a way through this. And that gives comfort and that allows that that allowed that woman to move on. It allowed her to repay the things that hurt her with kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And again, God shows us that, you know, in the Bible we have stories about Joseph imprisoned for
Yeah.
something he didn't do, and for years, and finally he got out. And when he got out, wow, he was second in ruler to the Pharaoh. We see, God knows the end from the beginning, we don't. And
Right.
even though it doesn't look good at the moment, you know, what's the old saying? It takes pretty smelly manure around the base of a rose tree to produce beautiful roses. That it's, you know, it's realizing that it may not look good at the moment, but this may be the very means of turning things around. And it's like with our children. I think that it's a great injustice to children not to allow them to experience the consequence of their actions. So we've got another situation happening today, which is, you know, I'm certainly not in favour of abusing children by beating them, but I'm also not in favour of totally indulging them. So we've got a middle way here. It's often the indulged children that become estranged with their parents.
Yeah. We are seeing that too. The children that have been given a lot and are feel they go off and they feel as if they're entitled to more, you
That's
know.
right. That's right. That's right. In fact, if our kids asked for money, we would laugh. We'd say, that's a funny one. Or we'd say, you know, are you putting it aside? You know, But I have to tell you something very funny. One of my children, my son, I think he was 25, he's 40 now. He said, "Mum, um, can I borrow $3,000?" And I laughed. He said, "What if I have no alcohol till I've paid it back?" And I said, "Keep talking. I'm interested." And I actually did.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
he
is
wasn't a
that
big drinker, you know. I think he'd have a drink at a party. But I remember after about 6 months, he said, Mum, can I put the money into your account?" I said, "Oh, don't worry about it, Peter. I'm seeing you next week." He said, "No, there's a party tonight." He would not. He would not have any alcohol till he'd paid that back. And where that comes from is I taught my children Bible principles. I taught them the stories of Daniel, of Joseph, of men that stood for truth. So they were brought up with honesty,
right?
integrity, to be noble. And those principles, I actually say they're woven into the very tissues of their body. So
Yeah,
it's teaching children such things from a young age. It gives them a wonderful foundation. You mentioned that a lot of the foundation is absolutely laid by the age of 7, and I do agree with that. And I think a lot of parents, they start too late. Start early,
yeah,
and and and
yeah.
and of course, what you must do, you must be patient, you must be honest, you must have the integrity, because children learn more from what you do than what you say.
Oh, 100%. You know, and the thing is, you know, I believe that the Bible is not only a historical accounting, but it's a recipe for the future. There's not one thing
Yeah.
that you don't face that isn't in the Bible somewhere. But a lot of
Mm.
times, and a lot of my Christian parents are going through the estrangement too, and the problem that they're seeing is they send their kids off to college, and you know where they raise them in, you know, homes that were devout. They send them off to college, and these kids come back. It's almost like they don't recognize them. They've given up God. They've given up their, you know, their all the questions are coming, and that's when a lot of the rifts start. And yes, they're praying that, you know, the child turns back towards God. But how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that as a
Well,
parent?
one of the worst things that parents can do to their children is get annoyed with them and get angry with them and yell at them. Whenever you get angry, whenever you lose it, Whenever you get annoyed, you're actually telling the child, I don't like you. So a child that comes back with lots of questions, you say, well done, I'll love your questions. The more you question, the more you will work out. See, I've always respected and honoured my children's choices, even though I don't agree with all their choices.
Right.
And that, you see, we went out to dinner for one night with my sons. I think it was my three sons. And it was probably when they were, I don't know, 20, 20, 25 and 28. And we're going to a Mexican restaurant and we're looking at the drink menu and they were looking at the beer. And
Right.
I said, there's a good one, ginger beer. Everyone laughs. And I know, they all get a beer. I don't say a word.
Right.
Because if I say to them, look, you shouldn't, you know what this alcohol is going to do to your brain, are they going to want to have dinner with me again? And
No.
there's no need for me to say it, because if I say it, I'm implying that they're idiots, because they know.
Right. Right.
But do you know what? None of those children will ever bring alcohol into our home.
Because you laid the boundary, right? It's a boundary.
And also because I have respected their choices, they greatly respect my choices.
Right.
And the old saying says, never nag, because it never does any good. And again, did you hear what I said? I'll say it again because it's so important, and I say this for the listeners. When you say to them, now you shouldn't be drinking this alcohol, you're implying that they're an idiot.
Right.
Because we already know that.
Right.
They already know. They already know
Agreed.
that.
Agreed.
So,
Let me ask you a question. And some more what you normally talk about, but how much do you think, because we're having a huge mental health epidemic too, that's growing and fueling also this aside of this estrangement epidemic. How much do you think the mental health issues we're seeing in young kids are due to imbalanced diets or well, let's start with that, imbalanced diets. Or what do you think? Is there any?
well, let me tell you very quickly that I trained as a psychiatric nurse. And this was back in the early 70s. And you know what I saw? It
What?
wasn't working. The same people come back again and again and again and again. And I put it on hold for about another 20 years.
Right.
Until I listened and studied the work of Dr. Neil Nedley, who's got an incredible depression recovery program. And he noted that a lot of his patients were on antidepressants, because
Right.
he's a GP, American GP. So he started to do lifestyle changes, exactly what you're talking about. He got them to drink more water. He got them to go on a mostly plant-based diet. He got them to exercise, go to bed early. He said that if that would even equal what medication did, he'd be happy. He said it far exceeded. Did you hear that?
Wow.
Far exceeded. And
Wow.
I was on the edge of my seat. I heard his lecture 20 years ago now, and I have seen exactly the same thing at our health retreat, from 15-year-olds to 80-year-olds with
Wow.
mental problems. You get them to drink more water, you start exercise, you get them to go to bed early, you put them on a plant-based diet, and the brain starts to work better.
Right. Right.
And then I'd say to them, okay, when did you start experiencing this? And
Right.
maybe it was abuse, maybe it was a tragedy in their life. And then I talk to them about that beautiful Bible principle of forgiveness.
Hmm.
And how that cuts the chains that bind you to painful past. But you notice where I start. We start with the water and the sleep and the food
Right.
and reducing that technology time, because that's what keeps people awake when they should be sleeping, when their brain should be recharging. They're on technology. So you do that night after night after night, the brain's not getting its recharge, its revive, it's going to start to deteriorate.
There's a doctor here, and I cannot remember his name offhand. I will bring it up, but his name is Dr. Bruce something, and he says that when he's dealing with when he's dealing with patients that are experiencing bodily imbalance or aches, pain, whatever, the first thing he does is he asks, "What's your relationship with your parents?" And then he said, "Before I'll even treat you, you need to go and work out the relationship with your parents." So he subscribes to the same thing, and I agree. I think that parent child or adult child connection runs so deep. It runs deeper than we even realize. And they say that come out in your body.
It does. It runs very, very deep. And, sometimes it can't be totally mended. And that's what I say to people. You can try, but if you're not getting a response, you basically have to say, well, that's their choice. And the old saying, we can choose our friends, but not our family. And of course we love our family, and of course we try as much as we can, but
Sure.
if they're not willing, it's just unfortunately something that you have to accept.
Well, and then also, you think about it, God knows the end from the beginning, right? And you have to trust that He's going to organize their steps in a
That's
way that will help them to
that's
wake
right.
up, if possible, or in the way that He feels their life needs to go. And sometimes that's just might not work with what you want, but you have to always think that the child that you love is needs to have his or her life go the way that God wants the
Yeah.
child's life, not how you want it to go.
Mm.
And people forget that. And I think that's what the problem is in our society is that's a huge issue for me and seeing how this is all playing is we've gotten rid of the foundational elements that have made this us the family unit strong, and we've made life so big. In my opinion, we've made all this so complicated when where you began in the beginning. It's simple in the sense that we have to pull in their worlds in one way, bring them back into the homes, more readily than allowing them. But the message is, you have to, everyone else is experiencing the world in a larger way through technology and whatnot. You can't keep them from that. But we're seeing enormous mental health issues. We're seeing children with depression. They don't know how to socialize. They're experiencing a larger world, but is that world benefiting them? Technology in many ways is wonderful, but too much of it too soon is a real problem, and they don't know how to manage it.
It's a real problem. I'll tell you an amusing story. My husband, I was traveling. I think he had two teenage girls in his home, grandchildren. They loved coming to Misty Mountain to work at the health retreat. And every night they'd come in and go to their rooms. And he didn't see them. So he turned the Wi-Fi off. And they came out and they said, "Pa, is there something wrong with the Wi-Fi?" He said, "Yes, I turned it off. Come and talk to your grandfather." Anyway, so they laughed because you make a joke of it. So they played Monopoly and he told stories and they had a ball.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
takes the parent to go, actually, we're turning that off. And
right,
that's what I say to parents. You're the boss of the home.
right,
You got to work with them a bit, but there got to be some rules in the home. There's going to be rules no matter where they go.
right, right,
And
right.
I think that's important. And I said to one lady, she said, "My 7-year-old can have the phone for half an hour every Sunday morning." I said, "I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad to hear that you've got some limits there." But she said, "Every time I turn my back, she picks the phone up." I said, "It's real easy. You say to her, 'Sweetheart, I love you so much that I don't want your brain to get fried and your eyes to be damaged. So we're going to have a little bit of some guidelines here. If you touch the phone, if you touch my phone, then you lose 5 minutes Sunday morning.'" Choices.
Oh, good one. Good
So
one.
Sunday morning comes, "Mum, I'm ready for the phone." "Oh, I'm so sorry, sweetheart, but you used up all your time." "Oh, no. we'll try again next week, sweetheart. So you always have to take them a step further and give them a little bit of hope. And then if you're still struggling, say, I've got a great idea of what we can do this Sunday morning, and let's go for a swim, because, and that they're devastated, they've lost it, and say, that's right, sweetheart, because they don't see forward like we do. See, our prefrontal cortex, where we look ahead, that's not fully developed till 30. Right. So we have the ability to do that, but the children don't. So you got to take them there and give them a little bit of hope.
Right. Do you think that I love that? Everyone that has young kids, listen to that. That's really a great piece of advice. Do you think that therapy culture has overstepped today? Has therapy culture become the parents or the God?
I certainly do. And I'll tell you something about therapy that I don't agree with.
Okay.
I don't agree with going over the past.
And okay, that's a big deal.
And so much they've got to talk about it. It's like I'll tell you about a guy I was talking with in the UK. He'd been a policeman. He'd seen a man burned to death in a car in front of me. Couldn't open the door, and he went to psychiatrist after psychiatrist. They said, you've got post-traumatic stress disorder. He went on medication after medication. I mean, he's only late 30s. And then we met. And then I was asked to give a little bit of a devotion one evening, and he was there. And I talked on Philippians 3:13. So that's an easy one to remember, Philippians 3:13, where the Bible says, this one thing I can do, forgetting the things which are behind, I reach forth to the things which are before. I press towards the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. And of course, that high calling is that we are the happiest, healthiest people. I said, let it go. Don't bring it up anymore. Don't bring it up into your mind. And also, studying the brain, I see that we can rewire our brain. If you keep relating the painful past, those pathways get bigger and bigger. Let's let it go. Right. We can't change what happens. That was so unfortunate. It's happened. Now let's move on to before. You see, I'm not interested in digging up graves. They're full of rotten stuff.
Oh, that's good. That's a good way of looking at it.
Let it go. Plant a plum tree on it.
Yeah. Well, and I say this to all the estranged parents who are watching this too. You have to take a note from that, because it's not just, you can't look just at your estranged adult child and say you want them to let it go. You have to let it go. You have to let go and let go of the mistakes you made, let go of the fact that now you've been rejected, let go of the fact that they may or may not come back in your life. Let go. And I always say this, and move yourself forward into a better state of mind.
Move it on. Absolutely move it on. It's like when there's a death, of course you mourn the loss. But Ecclesiastes chapter 3 says there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. And it says in verse 4, it says a time to mourn and a time to laugh, a time to cry, a time to dance. Yeah. You don't stay in the mourning, you start dancing. You stay in the weeping, you start laughing. And the Bible says in, I think it's Proverbs 17:22, it says, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Another proverb says, a merry heart hath a continual feast. Laugh more. It's time to laugh more. There's a time to laugh.
I so agree. I think people, a lot of these parents sort of get stuck in their grief because they're just so surprised. They're mourning almost like they're mourning a death that has happened, but their kids are still living, and they don't know what to do with that. They never expect. And a lot of these parents, they are truly have no answers. Like, what happened? It's like all of a sudden, it's the child. In certain cases, a lot of them will say, well, my son got married and his wife wants nothing to do with us as a family. What do you do in that situation? Because that does happen. That's a big issue.
You send her flowers. You find out when her birthday is. Find out what she loves. Send her little gifts. And in it you say, thank you so much for the wife you are to my son. Thank you so much. I thank God every day for you. You got to soften it, soften it, soften it.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
send cards. You know, little children love cards in the mail. Oh, it's so
Yeah,
wonderful to get a card in the mail. In the mail, say, you know, dear little one, I love you so much. You have got the best parents.
right.
Such a wonderful mum you've got, and wonderful dad. And you might think, well, she's not a wonderful mum. Do you know, there's always some good in everyone.
I agree. I agree. I think that's really that's definitely important. Well, you want to be supportive of your son's wife or your daughter's husband. I think
Yeah.
if they see you as an ally, but let's say you're unable to because she won't open her, and there might be other things going on there. She might have been raised in a household that wasn't welcoming to the in-laws or whatnot, and you're contending with that, or or she doesn't want you, let's just say a lot of parents aren't there of the manner to just invite themselves over or drop by. But sometimes I think become such a heavy handedness in many households today where, the lines are dramatically drawn where, and so how do you deal with a daughter-in-law or son-in-law that's saying, hey, listen, between Sunday at 9 a.m. and Sunday at 6 p.m., you can call the house. Other than that, mom and dad of my husband, I don't want to see you. What do you do with that?
So you said what you're saying is there's a time when they can visit and there's times when they can't. Well, I would say thank you so much for those times I can visit. You
Okay.
just grab that. You just grab that. And you know what? You bake an apple pie. You take a fresh apple pie to them. And if you don't bake, it's time to bake. Do you know what I did on the second last day that my grandchildren there? We baked an apple pie, we baked banana cake, and we baked raisin crackers. And they were saying, Nana, can you make enough so we can take some home? Oh, absolutely. So I gave them little packets so that they could take them home. Oh, they're just tiny little things, but how much? It just makes a difference. You know, you as much as you can. You know what? You have your eyes open for what they like and
Right.
what helps. And you know, it's like I went to my son's place and his wife's got the little one on her hip the whole day. I said, can I buy you a backpack for the
Right.
little? Oh, she was so happy. Guess what? We got it on special. And
Right.
you know, just
Right.
little tiny things. You just look for where you can help, what you can do. And if they say, no, I don't want a backpack, you just say, okay, that's
So
okay.
it's just you keep it positive. You turn
You
it, make sure it's
do,
keep
you
it
do,
positive and
you
supportive.
do. And that's what the Bible says, overcome evil with good. You always are looking for how you can help. How you
Let me
can.
ask you a question. Okay, so this reminds me of something. Um, so you have a grandparent, and the daughter, and the daughter and the son, daughter-in-law and son, or son-in-law and daughter, want to leave that child. They want the grandparent to babysit. Um, and but they arrive with a list of do's and don'ts in your home, and they say you need to follow these while you're babysitting. And you're looking at this and you're saying, this is crazy. Like, I can't give my kid a cookie, or the kid that my grandchild. How do you handle that? Like, how do you handle that in your own home? And how do you handle it in their home?
You say, thank you so much for the list. And you smile very, very sweetly. But you know what I have found? I've had young couples come to me and say, we don't give our children sugar. We take them to the grandparents. They give them to sugar. I said, you go out to tea with them. You and your husband and the grandparents, and say, we love you so much. You have such a great input with the children. But there's just one little problem. We
Right,
don't give the children sugar. And so we've got some alternatives that you can do.
right,
You can give them fruit juice ice blocks. We'll buy the fruit juice. We'll,
right,
we'll buy the blocks. So you dialogue and you come to some sort of compromise. And if they say they're our grandchildren and we can give them what they want, Well, I would say, and the parents must be united on this, I'm so sorry that we won't be able to let you have them unless we can
Right.
agree on this. Now, you never wanted to get like that. You
Right.
never wanted to do that. And
Right.
that's why it's far better to say, we love your input into the children.
Right.
So we're having tea together to find out how we can actually come to an area where we're both happy. Where
Right.
you can give a treat to the child. This is the treat that you can give. And
Right.
we'll supply them. If you don't want to make them, we'll supply them.
Right. See, I've never had an issue like that with my granddaughter. I just, I pretty much know how my son and his wife raised it. And if I have a question, I just ask, and then I just, I do what
Yeah.
they want because I just don't, I don't want to ruin whatever system they have in place. But
That's right. And that's respecting them, and when you respect their choices, they of course respect yours. But I've never given my children food between meals. And this happened, I don't know, about 4 years ago. I think the little boy was 3. And my daughter-in-law said to me, he needs to eat every couple of hours. And
right,
I said, I hear what you're saying. Notice what I said?
right, right,
I hear what you're saying. So I feed them very well, and I
right.
know they don't need anything.
Wow.
And if they wanted something, I'd give them water. And I remember
Okay.
this little boy. It was half an hour to lunch, and I could see he was wanting something, and he drank water. So I gave him a carrot. It
Right.
takes a long time for a 3-year-old to eat a carrot.
Yes, it does.
And so by the time he came, he'll eat the meal. But if I'd given him a sandwich, he's not going to eat the meal.
Right.
So, and at breakfast time, I'd give him a whole apple. It takes a long time for three-year
Oh,
olds.
yeah.
You don't peel it. You don't peel them. You don't core them. You just give them an apple. and and so notice that I didn't go into an argument with my daughter-in-law. I didn't say to her, "Well, if you would give him a little bit more protein at breakfast, he probably would." I'm not going to do that.
Right, right,
I
right,
just say to her, "I hear what you're saying."
right,
But
right,
I didn't have to give the little ones anything between meals because what I found, and I have found this years ago, that if you give them something between the meal, then they're not going to eat the next meal very much, and then they're going to want something mid afternoon. You get into this vicious cycle, and I don't criticize what they're doing in their house, but this is what I do in my house, and I'm not going to say, well, in my house, I'm not going to do that. No, 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 I don't do that. And you know what I also found? That when children say they're hungry, they're usually thirsty or they're usually bored. So I distract. I distract.
yes,
Give them water. I
that
don't.
is
Say, I don't say no. You're not having it. Then you get World War III. No, no, no. Yeah,
yeah,
you
I
don't.
agree that
Distract.
consuming water, well, we do not drink enough water at all as human beings. We just don't. Consuming water could solve a lot more issues. It's interesting. I was laughing to myself because I was watching a video of yours and you were talking about how, you progress in teaching your kids to eat and what have you from very young. And it was interesting because my daughter-in-law, she thought it was a new concept, I believe, but it actually isn't. And it's exactly what you were saying. When they can start chewing, you start introducing food. When she never gave her daughter um, baby food.
Yeah.
Never, never. She did as soon as the child could start, well, she would give that. And that was new to me because I was raised, you give your kids baby food, right? But she didn't do it. She did it differently. And she was right. The child is eating and, no issue. But
Do
I was surprised that you had said it too.
you know in 1976, when my first baby was sick for a little while, and I met a male nurse in the hospital. This is Camperdown Children's Hospital, and he was head of the malabsorption syndrome ward at
Mhm.
Camperdown Children's Hospital. He said this ward is full of children who are given food too young. He said because until the molars are through, the glands don't produce tylenol,
Right.
and myelin breaks down starch. So no baby should have starch until the
Right.
molars are through. Now, the molars are through anywhere between 14 and 22 months of age. And
Right.
mothers are being told to give their babies starch,
Right.
rice cereal, at 4 months of age. So I was 23 when I heard this. So,
Wow.
of course, that influenced the way I fed all my children. So
Right.
I didn't give my children any starch until the molars were through because
Right.
it made sense to me. I mean, when they were 10, 11 months, I'd give them a piece of apple, I'd give them a bit of banana, but they were mostly breastfed.
Right. Interesting. That's yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is brilliant. Right. It's more common sense, right? It's based in common sense too. I think a
It,
lot of what's happening is the common sense is gone out of our
it
society.
is, common sense is gone. And let me tell you something else, and this is in my book, Sustain Me. I have got a chapter called What Shall I Feed My Baby? And I look at the science and then I look at history. Do you know babies were not fed food a couple of 100 years ago?
Yeah.
It's a recent phenomenon.
Isn't that
And
interesting?
mothers are told if you don't give your babies food, they're going to have allergies. Their brain's not going to develop. Well, let's have a look at history. Einstein, Galileo, Rembrandt, Mozart, all the geniuses didn't eat food as babies
Right.
because babies were just fed milk,
Right.
sometimes till they were 2 or 3 years of age.
Right. It's crazy. Let me ask you another thing. What's a lot of the phenomenon we call it emergent adult, right? So that it's now become that 10-year period between age like let's say 20 and 30, where now you're an emerging adult, right? So you're still benefiting from being still considered and I was wondering as a youth, a child, and then you can be up to age 30 benefiting, and then now you're an adult. And you're seeing a lot of people aren't have no motivation to go out and start their lives. Where when I grew up, and when you grew up, obviously, there was by 18, you were saying to yourself, I want to start my life. I want to, drive my car. I want to go get a job. I want to, and be productive. But you're not seeing a lot of that anymore. You're seeing
No,
that. So what? I think that all plays into this because as I'm seeing the
no.
overlap from estrangement.
You
So
see, what's happening is home is too comfortable. Uh, You know, my husband said to his sister, was saying, "How am I going to get my kids out of the home?" He said, "Why would they want to leave? You pay for their internet, you pay for their phone, you feed them, you wash all their clothes. They don't have to do a thing. They don't pay any rent. Why would they leave?" So that's why, and that's what he says. You got to ruffle the nest. You got to ruffle the nest a little bit.
I think
Make it,
so.
make it uncomfortable. My son William, his 15-year-old's just got a job, and he said, "Okay, now that you've got a job, you start paying rent. He's
I
still at school. Yeah, you start paying rent. You start contributing. Now ideally they've already contributed to the home. Already they are doing their own washing. Already
right,
they are emptying the dishwasher. Ideally, they all should have one day a night where they're the cook. We've got to start teaching them this from a young age."
right. I agree with you, but then you're bucking up against a society that's saying, and I quote, you should not take your child off your health insurance, even if they have health insurance of their own, even if, or your phone plan, even if they're capable of funding their own phone plan, you should not do it because then you're becoming a neglectful, abusive parent. And I'm saying, if they have a job and they're capable of like living on their own, moving out, they have their own health care, they shouldn't be on your health insurance plan. They have to be
Now,
adults.
um, what fool said that?
Oh my God, you should say, right? That's what I'm saying. I just
Oh,
don't
crazy. Oh,
understand. It's
that don't,
crazy. The
that don't make
backlash you get from saying like, no, they
that,
shouldn't. You have to
that
fund
doesn't make
yourself.
that doesn't that doesn't make any sense at all. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
And
I
that's, yeah,
don't
and
know
that's
where that came from, but that's why I love that God's government is a government of freedom. Freedom is based on free choice, and
right,
these methods, one of the first things I said, these are tried and true methods.
right.
These aren't new things. You know what is new? Keep them on your health insurance. That's new. That's
Yeah.
that's not that's not a neglectful parent. Do you know what a neglectful parent is? A parent that does not allow the child to experience the consequence of their actions. That's a neglectful parent.
But it's being flipped today, and I agree with you 100%. But there's an element of society right now that's flipping it, and anything you do to push your child out of the nest that could be uncomfortable is now being flipped and called, well, that's abuse. And they literally are. And it's just, it's maddening to see these comments and then to have the support underneath them.
It's crazy. That's not abuse at all. Do you know what is abuse? Indulging a child.
I agree.
Indulging a child. And I call the guidelines in the home the safety of the home. Sweetheart, if you go there, this is the consequence.
Right.
They go there and then you say, I'm so sorry you've chosen this consequence. That is a faithful parent. Because when they leave home, guess what? There's guidelines, there's rules, they're everywhere. And I'll
Right.
tell you an interesting story, a very quickly one. In fact, it was a relative of my husband's. She was a single mother. She indulged the son. The son couldn't actually look sideways. The mother did everything for him. And to the point where he just went wild and ended up in jail. He ended up in jail, and there were strict guidelines there. And do you know that he loved the rules that were in the prison? He loved the work he did. His eyes were opened. He left that prison a different young man.
Right.
He got a job. He kept a distance from his mother.
Right.
He
Right.
married, and he became a fine, upstanding young man in society. But
Right.
the indulgence of his mother, he recognized it was ruining him.
I think that's part of our societal problem today, and the estrangement situation is because um, the the encouragement of abiding by rules and the encouragement of disallowing consequences and calling that, in a sense, if you put down consequences and then you execute the consequences, you're now being called abusive or neglectful. I think that flip has made a wild child society where up is down and down is up.
It's absolutely crazy, because if you don't allow them the consequences for their actions, they actually never learn. And so you're creating kids that are useless in society. You talk to tradesmen today. So many tradesmen will not apprentice young men. You say, why not? They don't come to work. They don't do what they're told. No, I haven't got time for that. I haven't got time for kids like that.
Right.
And
Right.
so when our youngest son, 15, went to start landscaping, at the end of the day, the boss rang up and said, I've never had a kid like this. Your 15-year-old is teaching my apprentices things they don't know. Your 15-year-old cleaned out the back of the truck like it's never been cleaned out before. He's just raving and raving about this 15-year-old, this kid that was homeschooled, that works hard.
Yeah.
And I thought, isn't this interesting? Because you know what he usually gets? He usually gets the sons of his wealthy friends in. They don't know what to do. And every time he turns around, they're on their phone.
Yep. Yeah.
Then,
Yeah. That's what we're creating right now. And that's why we have so many issues. And you know what? Parents sometimes have to be strong in the face of allowing for those consequences, even if they hate you for it.
oh yeah.
Sometimes you have to just say, that's it. You knew.
That's why it is. You spell it out first. You say, sweetheart, these are the guidelines with a big smile on your face. And you know, you look at God's law. God's law is a law of protection.
Right.
It protects us, it tells us what the consequences are. So you say, sweetheart, here are the consequences of this, and this is the consequence of this. You choose. And if
Right.
they choose the wrong road, you say, I'm so sorry, you chose the wrong road. Because, it's not my choice. It's not my
Right.
choice. So sorry that you touched the phone every time I turned around, because now you've chosen no phone on the Sunday morning. And
Right.
then the child gets upset, say, sorry, sweetheart, but guess what? Next week we've got a new week. Let's try again. So you
Right.
take them one step further and show, well, there's hope. We can try again. You know, the
Right.
proverb says a just man falls 7 times, but he rises up again. So show them that. Yeah, you made a mistake, but hey, let's try again. Let's try again. And if you don't teach the child to work, you deprive them of the joy of accomplishment.
That
And
is
it is
so true.
work that teaches the child common sense, because everything you do in life, something's going to go wrong. And
Right.
when something goes wrong, then you've actually got to think about, now how can I fix this up? It's like if you ask a child, please take this bucket of compost to the chook pen, feed the chooks, the chickens.
Right.
And it says, it's too heavy. And if the parent says, it's all right, sweetheart, I'll carry it. Do you know
Right.
what the parent just said? You're an idiot. You're stupid. You can't even carry a bucket. No, you know what you do? You say, I know it's heavy, but I know you're strong. Why don't you do 5 steps with it in this hand and then swap it to the other hand, then 5 steps. And you know what? Your muscles are going to get stronger and stronger.
Yeah. And you're empowering the child to be able to do
That's
things.
right. That's right. You're showing them how to do it. It's like the poor man. Don't buy the poor man a fish. Buy him a fishing rod. You know, you teach the child how they can conquer that, how they can get stronger, how they can do that.
I think we're going to end on that, but man, I could talk with you at least another hour on all these things. Will you come back again and we'll broach a whole new set of questions in this regard? Because I think you're just really a wealth of knowledge. Once your tour is done, once your world tour. I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to put the link to your website, the real Barbara O'Neill. I know there's a lot of stuff, guys, being sold with her.
There's many false ones out there. There's a lot of false ones out there. There's only one true, and I'm about to give an official statement on this. My
Okay.
only website is officialbarbarao'neill.com.
Okay. So now we know that. There's also, you did a parenting series. Just name that too.
Yes, we did. Michael and I are always telling stories, especially with our guests at Misty Mountain, and everyone said, you should do a series, so we did. So it's a 6-part series, and it's called Raising Children in the Modern Age. And if you go to officialbarbarao'neill.com, you can download that 6-part series.
All right. That's all good things. I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Really, really appreciate it. You gave a lot of great knowledge, and a lot of people will benefit from having it. So thank you. I will send you all clips and everything. You can use how you will. But again, I'm blessed to have you on the show. Blessed. And thank your husband for me too, for arranging it.
I will. God is good. Thank you so much.
God is good. All right. Take care. Bye-bye. There you go, Barbara O'Neill. I love that hour. We could have continued to talk. I'm just going to bring on 2 other things. Doormat Mom No More. It's available on Amazon. Get it and read it. You're going to really love this book. It'll help you navigate estrangement and how to, understand the community and bring you out on the other side. So that's one. And then the other thing is the app, the Doormat Mom No More app. It basically allows you to meet other estranged parents in your local vicinity, in your town, out of town, and honestly across the nation if you so chose. I know a lot of people need support, and that's a great app to download. It's available in the iPhone and Android. Thank you again for joining me and Barbara O'Neill talking about estrangement. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care.